Danny Carter stared at the flickering screen in front of him and rubbed his tired eyes. The data vault sat on the examination table like a metal brick, its surface covered in symbols he could not read. Around him, the research station hummed with the sound of air filters and computers working day and night. "It is no use, human," Thessa said from across the room. The Kresh scholar's 4 arms moved in a gesture that Danny had learned meant disappointment. Her blue skin seemed to glow under the bright laboratory lights. "We have analyzed this vault for 3 cycles. The data corruption is complete." Danny did not answer right away. He leaned closer to his screen and watched the patterns scroll past. The other archivists had already given up. They said the Velkar data vaults were too old, too damaged. 5,000 years was a long time for any storage device to survive. The Velkar civilization was gone, their planets cold and empty. These vaults were all that remained. "Look at this," Danny said quietly. He pointed at a section of code that kept repeating. "This pattern here, it shows up every few hundred lines." Thessa walked over on her long legs. She was nearly 7 feet tall, and Danny had to look up when she stood beside him. Her large eyes studied the screen with the kind of focus that made her one of the best archivists in the Galactic Council. "That is corruption," she said after a moment. "Random degradation of the storage medium." "Maybe," Danny said, "but random things do not usually repeat in patterns." Another voice joined the conversation. Commander Vorath entered the laboratory with heavy footsteps. The Krell officer was built like a walking tank, his gray armored skin thick enough to stop most weapons. He commanded the research station Meridian Point and had little patience for projects that went nowhere. "Archivist Carter," Vorath said in his deep, rumbling voice. "The Council is asking for progress reports. What do I tell them?" Danny saved his work and turned in his chair. "Tell them I need more time." "Time we do not have." Vorath crossed his massive arms. 3 other vault teams have already confirmed total data loss. Your vault shows the same corruption signature. We should move on to the other artifacts. "What if it is not corruption?" Danny asked. The room went quiet. Thessa's head tilted to one side in the way her species showed confusion. Vorath's eyes narrowed. "Explain," the commander said. Danny stood up and walked to the data vault itself. He placed his hand on its cool surface. The Velkar were an advanced species. They knew their civilization was ending. They had time to prepare these vaults. Why would they build storage devices that would fail? 5,000 years, Thessa said softly. "Nothing lasts forever." "True," Danny agreed. "But what if they were not trying to store data the way we think of it? What if they stored something else?" Vorath made a sound like grinding stones. "You speak in riddles, human." Danny turned to his computer and pulled up a comparison he had been working on. "I have been studying human memory storage. When our brains remember traumatic or important events, the memories do not store in neat, organized files. They fragment. They scatter. They connect to emotions and senses in ways that seem random but are not." He highlighted sections of the Velkar code. "This looks exactly like a traumatic memory pattern. Fragmented, emotional, non-linear." Thessa moved closer to the screen. Her breathing changed, becoming faster. "You think the Velkar stored memories? Actual consciousness patterns?" "I think they stored what mattered most to them," Danny said. "Not their technology or their history books, their experiences, their feelings, who they were as individuals." Vorath shook his head. "This is speculation. The Council needs facts." "Give me one more week," Danny said. He looked the commander in the eyes. "If I am wrong, you can reassign me and seal the vault. But if I am right, we are not looking at corrupted data. We are looking at an entire civilization, trying to tell us who they were." The commander was quiet for a long moment. Outside the laboratory windows, the stars hung in the darkness of space, like distant diamonds. Finally, Vorath nodded once. 1 week, he said, but you will need help. I will assign additional resources. I need a neuroscientist, Danny said quickly. Someone who understands how organic brains store emotional memory. We have several species with expertise in neural mapping, Thessa offered. I need a human, Danny said. Someone who thinks the way I do. Vorath considered this. There is a Dr. Lisa Morgan on the lower decks. She studies memory formation in various species. I will have her assigned to your team. Thank you, Commander. After Vorath left, Thessa remained by the computer screen. She studied the patterns Danny had highlighted. Her 4 hands moved in complex gestures as she thought. You really believe this is possible? She asked. That we could hear the voices of the dead? Danny looked at the data vault sitting on the examination table. Somewhere inside that metal brick, locked away in patterns that looked like corruption, might be the preserved thoughts of people who had been gone for 5,000 years. I do not know if it is possible, he said honestly, but I know we have to try. If someone found the last remnants of Earth 5,000 years from now, I would want them to know we were more than just buildings and machines. I would want them to know we loved. We laughed. We cried. We mattered. Thessa's large eyes seemed to shine with something that might have been tears. Her species did not cry the way humans did, but Danny recognized emotion when he saw it. Then we will try, she said simply. We will listen for their voices in the noise. Danny nodded and turned back to his computer. The work ahead would be difficult, but somewhere in the corrupted data, he could feel it. The Velkar were waiting to be remembered. Dr. Lisa Morgan arrived at the laboratory early the next morning, carrying 3 bags of equipment and a cup of coffee that had gone cold hours ago. She was a small woman with brown hair pulled back in a tight bun and glasses that kept sliding down her nose. Danny met her at the door and helped carry her equipment inside. Commander Vorath said you need a memory specialist, Lisa said as she set her bags on an empty table. He also said you think ancient alien data corruption is actually stored consciousness. That is either brilliant or crazy. Maybe both, Danny admitted with a small smile. Thank you for coming. Lisa pushed her glasses up and looked at the data vault. So this is it? The impossible project everyone else gave up on? That is it, Danny confirmed. He brought up his research on the main screen. I have been comparing the corruption patterns to human traumatic memory storage. The similarities are remarkable. Lisa studied the data for several minutes without speaking. Her eyes moved rapidly across the screen, taking in everything. Thessa watched from her workstation across the room, curious about the new human addition to their team. This is not random, Lisa finally said. She pointed at several clusters of code. See how these fragments connect? They are not organized by time or logic. They are organized by emotional weight. Danny felt excitement building in his chest. You see it too? I see it, Lisa confirmed. She turned to him with a serious expression. But if I am right, we cannot read this like normal data. We need to build an interface that processes information the way a brain does, emotionally, associatively. Can we do that? Danny asked. Lisa smiled for the first time. I have been working on emotional mapping technology for 6 years. If anyone can do it, we can. For the next 4 days, Danny and Lisa worked almost without stopping. They ate meals at their workstations and slept in shifts. Thessa helped translate Velkar symbols and provided historical context about the dead civilization. She told them about the Velkar homeworld, a planet with 3 moons and oceans that glowed at night. She showed them images of Velkar architecture, tall buildings that seemed to grow from the ground like crystal trees. They were artists, Thessa explained one evening. Every building, every tool, every object was made to be beautiful. They believed function and beauty could not be separated. That fits, Lisa said without looking up from her work. Artistic minds often have strong emotional memory patterns. They would naturally think to preserve experience rather than just facts. On the fifth day, they were ready to test their new interface. Lisa had built a neural mapping device that would attempt to read the Velcar data as emotional memory instead of linear information. Danny had programmed translation algorithms that would convert those emotions into something they could understand. Commander Vorath came to observe, along with several other council members. The laboratory was crowded with beings from a dozen different species. Everyone wanted to see if the humans were right, or if they had wasted a week on impossible dreams. "Beginning the first test," Danny announced. His hands were shaking slightly as he activated the interface. The screen flickered. Static filled the air with white noise. For a long moment, nothing happened. Danny could hear someone behind him whisper that it was not working. Then the static cleared. An image appeared on the screen, but it was not like any data they had recovered before. It was soft, slightly blurred at the edges. The way a memory feels rather than the way a photograph looks. They saw a landscape with a purple sky. 2 suns hung low on the horizon, painting everything in shades of orange and gold. "It is working," Thessa breathed. In the image, they could see a figure. It was small, probably a child by Velcar standards. The child stood on a hill covered in something like grass, but blue instead of green. The child was watching the sunset with their head tilted back in wonder. Lisa adjusted the emotional sensors. "I am reading joy," she said quietly. "Pure, simple joy. This is a happy memory." The image shifted, the way memories shift when you recall them. Now they could see the child's hand reaching out toward the sun's. They could almost feel the warmth on that small hand. The child made a sound, musical and light. Laughter. "We are witnessing a Velcar child's memory of watching a sunset," Danny said. His voice was thick with emotion. 5,000 years ago, this child stood on a hill and thought the sunset was beautiful. The memory faded after a few more seconds. The screen returned to static, but the laboratory was completely silent. Several of the alien observers had moved closer, their faces showing expressions that crossed species barriers. Wonder, sadness, recognition. Commander Vorath stepped forward. His massive frame seemed somehow smaller than before. "Can you access more?" he asked. "Yes," Lisa said. "The vault is full of them. Thousands of memories, maybe millions, all encoded as emotional experiences rather than data files." Thessa was crying now, the moisture running down her blue skin in thin streams. "They knew they were dying," she said. "They knew their world would end, and instead of trying to preserve their technology or their achievements, they chose to preserve this. Moments of beauty, moments of joy." Danny nodded slowly. "The vault did not fail. It was never meant to store data the way we understand it. It was meant to store what it felt like to be alive." Over the next 2 days, they recovered more fragments. Each one was a glimpse into a life lived 5,000 years ago. They saw a Velcar father teaching his daughter to pilot a floating craft through crystal canyons. They watched an artist creating sculptures made of pure light that danced in the air. They experienced friends sharing a meal together, the taste of food and the warmth of companionship translated through the emotional mapping. But not all the memories were happy. Some showed fear. Others showed grief. One memory showed a Velcar standing in the rain, missing someone who was gone. "Why preserve sad memories?" one council member asked. Lisa answered without hesitation. "Because sadness is part of being alive. You cannot have joy without knowing sorrow." The Velcar understood that. By the end of the second week, the laboratory had become something like a museum. Danny and Lisa had recovered over 300 distinct memories from the vault, each one a window into a civilization that had been silent for millennia. The Galactic Council had sent more observers, and now scientists from 20 different species came to witness what the humans had discovered. Thessa spent her days cataloging the memories, trying to organize them in ways that made sense. But she was learning what Danny and Lisa already knew. Memories did not organize neatly. They connected through emotion and association, jumping from one moment to another in ways that seemed random but felt right. "I have found something," Thessa said one morning. She looked tired but excited. "The vault system is more complex than we thought. Each vault we have found is not independent. They are connected like neurons in a brain." Danny looked up from his workstation. "What do you mean?" Thessa projected a map onto the main screen. It showed the locations where different Velkar vaults had been discovered across their former territory. Lines connected them in intricate patterns. "Each vault represents a different aspect of collective memory," she explained. "This one we are working on contains personal family memories, but there are others. One might contain artistic experiences. Another might hold memories of education and learning. Together, they form something like a planetary mind." Lisa stood and walked closer to the map. "They built a distributed consciousness. No single vault holds everything, but together they preserve the entire emotional experience of their civilization." "Exactly," Thessa confirmed. Her four hands moved in excited gestures. "But it means we need help. We cannot process all of this alone." Danny knew she was right. What they had discovered was too big for a small team. He contacted Commander Vorath and requested additional resources. Within 2 days, a human engineer named Kevin Price arrived from another research station. Kevin was young, maybe 25, with red hair and a face full of freckles. He specialized in building immersive technology, devices that could make virtual experiences feel real. When Danny explained what they needed, Kevin's eyes went wide with excitement. "You want to build a memory chamber," Kevin said. "A place where people can actually experience these memories, not just watch them on a screen." "Can you do it?" Lisa asked. Kevin grinned. "Give me 4 days and whatever equipment I need. I will build you something amazing." He was true to his word. Kevin worked day and night, barely sleeping. He built a circular chamber in the center of the laboratory with walls that could project images in full 3-dimensional space. He added sensors that could simulate temperature, air movement, even smells. The chamber could translate the emotional data from the memories into full sensory experiences. "Who wants to test it?" Kevin asked when he finished. Everyone looked at each other nervously. Experiencing a memory fully was different from watching it on a screen. It meant letting an alien consciousness touch your own mind, even if just for a moment. "I will do it," Thessa said quietly. She stepped toward the chamber before anyone could object. Danny felt concerned. "Are you sure? We do not know what it will feel like." "I am sure," Thessa said. She looked at the data vault sitting on its table. "I have spent my life studying dead civilizations. I have never had the chance to truly meet them. I want to know what it felt like to be Velkar." Lisa helped Thessa into the chamber and attached the neural sensors. Kevin checked all his systems twice. Danny loaded one of the gentler memories they had found, something that felt warm and safe in the emotional readings. "Starting the sequence," Kevin announced. The chamber walls began to glow. Thessa stood very still in the center as the memory surrounded her. The observers outside could see what she was experiencing on external monitors. It was a memory of a Velkar grandmother, her skin marked with the patterns of great age, sitting in a garden while small children played around her. The grandmother was singing. The melody was strange but beautiful, rising and falling like water flowing over stones. The children laughed and tried to sing along, their young voices not quite matching the notes, but full of joy anyway. The grandmother reached out and touched one child's face with incredible gentleness, and the love in that gesture needed no translation. Inside the chamber, Thessa had gone completely still. The memory lasted 3 minutes, then faded. Kevin opened the chamber door carefully. Thessa stood there with moisture running down her face in streams. She was crying harder than Danny had ever seen. "Thessa?" Lisa said softly. "Are you all right?" Thessa nodded but could not speak at first. She stepped out of the chamber and sat down heavily in a chair. Her 4 hands were shaking. "I felt it," she finally said. "I felt what that grandmother felt, the love she had for those children, the peace in her heart as she sang to them. It was so strong, so pure." She looked up at Danny and Lisa with wonder in her large eyes. She knew the world was ending. This memory is from the final years, but she was not afraid. She was grateful, grateful for the children, grateful for the song, grateful for the garden and the sunlight. The laboratory was silent except for the quiet hum of machinery. Several of the alien observers had moved closer, their faces showing emotions that crossed the barriers between species. One of them, a council member from a species Danny did not recognize, spoke in a trembling voice. "They chose this," the council member said. "With their world dying, with everything they built turning to dust, they chose to spend their final years recording love." Commander Vorath had been standing in the back of the room. Now he moved forward, his massive frame somehow gentle as he approached the chamber. "I argued we should seal the vault," he said quietly. "I said the emotional weight was too painful. I was wrong." He looked at Thessa, then at Danny and Lisa. To forget them would be wrong. To seal away their memories would be a second death. They deserved to be known. They deserved to be remembered. The decision changed everything. Commander Vorath ordered the research team expanded and gave them access to equipment they had only dreamed of using. Within a week, they had recovered memories from 6 additional vaults. Each one revealed more about the Velkar and their final days. Danny found himself working longer hours than ever before, but he did not mind. Every memory they recovered felt important, like rescuing someone from being forgotten forever. Lisa worked beside him, her expertise in emotional patterns helping them understand the deeper meanings behind what they saw. One evening, as most of the team rested, Danny accessed a section of the vault they had marked as heavily corrupted. The emotional readings from this area were intense, almost overwhelming. He suspected these were the memories from the very end, the ones the Velkar had recorded as their world died around them. "You should not access those alone," Lisa said from behind him. Danny had not heard her enter the laboratory. "I know," Danny admitted. "But someone has to look eventually. We cannot avoid the difficult memories forever." Lisa pulled up a chair and sat beside him. "Then we looked together." They started carefully, processing the data through filters that would soften the emotional impact. What they found made both of them go quiet. These memories showed the Velkar facing their doom, a star going unstable, growing brighter and hotter with each passing year. They saw cities being evacuated. They saw people saying goodbye to homes they had lived in for generations. But what surprised Danny most was what the memories did not show. There was no panic, no riots or violence, no desperate scrambles for escape ships or bunkers. Instead, the Velkar had accepted what was coming with a grace that took his breath away. "They had spacecraft," Lisa said quietly, studying the technical data embedded in some memories. "They could have fled, built colony ships, and tried to find a new home. But they did not," Danny said. He pulled up another memory that showed a Velkar council meeting. The leaders were old, their skin marked with age patterns. They were voting on how to spend their final years. The decision was unanimous. They would stay. They would not waste their remaining time on a desperate flight to uncertain survival. Instead, they would record who they were. They would make sure the universe remembered that the Velkar had existed, had loved, had mattered. "I need to show this to the others," Danny said. The next morning, he called a meeting. The entire expanded research team gathered in the largest conference room on the station. Danny and Lisa presented what they had found. They showed the memories of the Velkar making their choice, deciding to face the end together rather than scatter to the stars. Thessa translated the words from one council leader, an old Velkar with scars across his face from a long life lived fully. "We cannot outrun a dying star," the leader had said, "but we can choose how we face it. We can choose what we leave behind. Let our legacy be love, not fear. Let those who find us know we were brave enough to stay together." The room was silent when the presentation ended. Then Commander Vorath stood. "I want to access the deepest memories," he said. "The ones from the final days. I want to see how they faced the end." "Commander," Danny said carefully, "the emotional weight will be extreme. We are talking about experiencing the death of an entire civilization." "I understand," Vorath replied. His voice was firm but gentle. "But they recorded these memories for a reason. They wanted to be witnessed. It would be disrespectful to turn away now." Over the next 3 days, they prepared. Kevin upgraded the memory chamber to handle more intense emotional data. Lisa developed new neural protection protocols to prevent anyone from being overwhelmed. They decided that volunteers would experience the final memories together, in groups, so no one would have to face that weight alone. Danny volunteered to go first, along with Lisa, Thessa, Kevin, and Commander Vorath. They entered the expanded chamber together as dozens of other team members watched from outside. The monitors would show everyone what they experienced. "Loading the final sequence," Kevin said. His voice shook slightly. "This is the last month before their sun went critical." The chamber walls came alive. They were standing in a Velkar city, but it was not like the beautiful places they had seen in earlier memories. The sky was wrong, too bright, the color of fever. The heat was intense even through the chamber's simulations. The city was empty of the bustling life they had seen before. But the city was not abandoned. In a central plaza, thousands of Velkar had gathered, maybe tens of thousands. They stood together in organized groups, families and friends holding hands. The memory showed them from the perspective of someone in the crowd looking around at faces marked with tears, but also with determination. "They are recording," Lisa whispered beside Danny. "All of them. This is a mass recording event." The perspective shifted, moving through the crowd. They saw a father kneeling before his daughter, maybe 8 years old in human terms. He was speaking to her softly, telling her it would be all right, that they would face this together, that she was brave and beautiful, and he was proud to be her father. They saw 2 Velkar who appeared to be lifelong enemies embracing, forgiving old grudges that no longer mattered. They saw artists creating one last sculpture in the plaza center, a monument of light that would exist only in memory. They saw medical workers moving through the crowd, offering comfort to those who were afraid. The emotional weight was crushing. Danny felt tears running down his face. Beside him, Thessa was crying openly. Even Commander Vorath, the hardened military officer, had moisture in his eyes. But through the grief, Danny felt something else: pride, dignity, love so powerful it transcended species and time. The Velkar were not running. They were not hiding. They were facing the end with their heads held high, making sure their final act was one of compassion. The memory continued, showing the sun growing brighter in the sky. The heat became unbearable. But the Velkar did not break formation. They held each other. They sang together, voices rising in harmony. The memory ended before the final moment. The Velkar had chosen not to record their actual deaths, only the courage with which they faced them. When the chamber walls faded back to normal, the 5 people inside stood in stunned silence. Around them, through the transparent walls, they could see the entire research team crying. Danny wiped his face and looked at his companions. Lisa was holding onto Kevin's arm for support. Thessa had sunk to her knees, all four hands covering her face. Commander Vorath stood like a statue, his massive shoulders shaking with emotion he could no longer contain. "They were so brave," Thessa finally whispered. "So impossibly brave." Kevin opened the chamber door and they stepped out into the laboratory. No one spoke at first. What words could possibly be enough after what they had witnessed? The Velkar had shown them something profound about dignity and choice and love in the face of absolute ending. It was Commander Vorath who finally broke the silence. "The Galactic Council must see this," he said. His deep voice was rough with emotion. "Every species in the galaxy should know what the Velkar did, how they chose to be remembered." "What are you proposing?" Danny asked. Vorath straightened to his full height, and Danny saw the military commander return with new purpose burning in his eyes. "A memorial, not just a museum or an archive. A living memorial where beings from any world can come and experience these memories. Where the Velkar can teach us all how to face our darkest moments with grace." Thessa stood slowly, wiping the moisture from her face. "I will propose it to the council myself. The Velkar memories should be declared protected heritage, sacred to all species." "We would need to build something special," Kevin said. He was already thinking like an engineer. "Not just a building, a place designed to honor what they left behind. Multiple chambers so many people can experience the memories at once." Lisa nodded. "And we need protocols, emotional support, guides who can help people process what they feel. These memories are powerful, beautiful but painful. People will need help carrying that weight." Over the next month, the proposal went through the Galactic Council. Danny and his team presented their findings to representatives from hundreds of worlds. They showed selected memories, starting gentle and building to the more powerful ones. By the end, even the most skeptical council members were moved. The vote was unanimous. The Velkar memories would be preserved as the first interspecies heritage site. A memorial station would be built in orbit around the dead Velkar homeworld. Any being from any species would be welcome to visit and remember a people who chose love over fear. The construction took 6 months. Danny, Lisa, Kevin, and Thessa all stayed on as the memorial took shape. They helped design the experience, choosing which memories to feature and in what order. They trained guides from dozen species who would help visitors understand and process what they experienced. The day the memorial opened, thousands of beings arrived for the ceremony. Danny stood with his team on an observation deck, watching ships from across the galaxy dock at the station. He saw species who had never met before gathering together, united by curiosity about the Velkar. "Are you nervous?" Lisa asked beside him. "Terrified," Danny admitted. "What if people do not understand? What if they think it is too sad, too painful?" "They will understand," Thessa said with confidence. She had become one of the memorial's lead guides, dedicating her life to sharing the Velkar story. The Velkar message is universal. Love transcends species. Courage transcends time. The first public visitors entered the memorial that afternoon. Danny watched from the control room as a family from a water-dwelling species entered one of the smaller chambers. They had brought their children, wanting to teach them about bravery and sacrifice. The chamber activated, showing one of the gentler Velkar memories. It was the memory Danny had suggested they use first, a simple moment from the early days before the crisis began. A Velkar child playing in the rain, laughing as water ran down their face. The child looked up at the purple sky and spread their arms wide, spinning in circles, completely absorbed in the joy of being alive. The family watched in silence. When the memory ended, Danny saw the parent kneel down and pull their children close, holding them tight. The message was clear. Life was precious. Every moment mattered. The Velkar had known this, even at the end. More visitors came in the following days. Some spent hours in the memorial, experiencing memory after memory. Others could only handle one or two before needing to step away and process what they felt. But everyone who came left changed in some small way. Danny found his favorite place was not in the control room, but in the quiet garden they had built at the memorial's center. It was designed to look like a Velkar garden from the memories, with blue grass and flowing water. A simple plaque stood in the center with words in every galactic language. The Velkar lived. The Velkar loved. The Velkar mattered. One evening, 3 months after the opening, Danny sat in the garden alone. He was tired, but satisfied. They had recovered over 10,000 memories now from various vaults. Each one added another piece to the picture of who the Velkar had been. Lisa found him there as the station's artificial sun set, painting the garden in shades of orange and gold like a Velkar sunset. She sat beside him on the bench without speaking at first. "A family thanked me today," Lisa finally said. "They said experiencing the Velkar memories helped them reconcile after years of fighting. They realized life was too short to waste on anger." Danny smiled. "The Velkar would have liked that." "I think they would," Lisa agreed. She looked up at the memorial's dome where stars were beginning to appear. "You know what amazes me most? We almost dismissed this as corrupted data. We almost gave up and moved on." "But we did not," Danny said. "No," Lisa confirmed. "We listened. We looked deeper. We recognized that what seemed like corruption was actually something more precious than any database. It was memory. It was love. It was proof that a civilization existed and chose to face their end with dignity."